this week on the Quad. A lot to unpack. The American elections, will debrief on that, and a pogrom in Holland over the weekend. We have a very special guest co-host, an interesting interview all the way from somebody from Holland, and of course, as usual, plenty of scumbags and some heroes. Only on JNS, only on the Quad. Okay, everyone, welcome back. I can't believe it's been a week. It's almost like the world has changed, turned upside down, and reality has moved over the American elections. And today with me to unpack and analyze all of it is Shoshanna Keats Jaskoll, who is the founder of Chokhmat Nashim, elevating Orthodox women's voices and fighting isolation of those women. And a very special guest co-host, Lahav Harkov, a rock star journalist who today is a senior political correspondent of Jewish Insider, and along with me, senior fellow of the Mizgav Institute for National Security. Welcome, Lahav.
Thanks for having me on the show.
So great to have you.
Love Lahav.
Oh my God, it's been what a week.
Crazy.
What a week. It's been a crazy week.
Crazy week.
I think that many of us believed that the Republicans were going to win. I'm not sure any of us understood that it was going to be such a win, or that we're going to take every single arm of government. It was interesting to see how the Jews voted. It was interesting to see what's happened since in the Middle East. All of a sudden, Qatar wants to kick out Hamas. All of a sudden, the Houthis are quiet. Rumors that
they shot a rocket at us this morning.
They shot a rocket, and the Iraqis shot a rocket. But also a lot of very shocked people. And I think they're shocked because the media had a whole story, a whole perception that was actually super far from reality, which makes us think, well, what is the media actually doing? They're not telling the news. They are what?
Out of touch.
Out of touch, representing, deluded. Lahav.
As the media representative.
You are the media representative. You also report for a pretty important Jewish media outlet in America that gets to the Hill. Give us your 2 cents on this.
Okay, so first of all, I do think that there's left-wing media liberal bias and that there was wishful thinking and that most of the American media wanted Harris to win. I don't deny that. But I think there are 2 other things that we have to keep in mind that don't indict the media necessarily. First of all, people need to understand statistics where if they say, I don't know, if they said Harris had a 90% chance of winning, which they didn't say, by the way, they said the whole time that it was close, it still means that there is a 10% chance Trump would win, right? People don't actually think about the way statistics work. The other thing is that if you look at the popular vote, right, it was like 49-51%.
So it's still pretty close.
So it was still pretty close. That being said, Trump played the game correctly in the swing states.
And what do you mean by that? What did he do that Harris didn't do?
I mean, he focused on the key states for him, right? He was really, really focused on Pennsylvania. I think there were things that Harris could have done she could have spent more time in Pennsylvania. She could have
chosen Shapiro.
She did him a favor, by the way, because now he can be the contender.
She didn't do herself a favor.
You know what?
I don't think so.
I'm not entirely sure I believe this reporting, but as of yesterday, I think it was in the Wall Street Journal, there was sort of a whole report about the things that went wrong. And they said that Shapiro rejected her.
But for that,
it wouldn't surprise you, but the fact that it only came out after the fact is a little suspicious. So
So you're saying she didn't focus enough on the key states. Would you also agree, and this is my contention, that Trump underpolls because people don't want to admit they're voting for him?
That's probably true.
Yeah. Probably.
And it happens to Bibi as well here, by the way. He always does better than the polls give him.
Interesting.
Well, and I think that Trump, and to a lesser extent, but still true for Bibi, is that people who are sort of low trust voters, people who have less trust in the elites and the institutions vote for them. And so they're more likely to just lie on purpose.
That's also true.
But what a win, though, Lahav.
Yeah.
The House, the Senate.
Yeah.
Well, that's really what shows you that it wasn't just Trump, that it wasn't like if the Republicans swept, like people, and if it was me, right? Like if it was me who had run, and I would be like deep diving into what did I miss? What did I do wrong? How did this go? So the entire Democratic Party really needs to be saying what happened and why and how, mea culpa, like what do we do wrong and fix it.
I'm not sure they're looking in the mirror. Bill Maher had a nice little monologue saying, guys, you can't lose this badly and just say everybody is
racist.
Racist.
I totally agree.
You have to actually look in the mirror and see why people have lost trust in the Democratic
I wrote
Party.
the next day on my Facebook. I didn't get into politics because I really hate politics, but I wrote, I just want to congratulate the far left on their Republican win.
Yeah.
And people went crazy on me.
Crazy bad or crazy good?
Both.
But the people were really mad at me.
The fact that both, Arab Americans and a lot of sort of very connected, involved Jews were pro-Trump was bizarre.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, it looked like Arab Americans voting against their own interests. So we could talk about what Jewish interests are in this election. But Trump was not going to be better for the Palestinians from their perspective, but they wanted to punish Harris. Right. So they were voting.
There's something so illogical about that.
You think that they were voting for Trump to punish Harris?
No, they didn't vote Harris.
That's what they
a lot of them wrote Jill Stein.
Right,
voted Jill Stein.
If you look at Dearborn, Michigan, right, which is the most Arab city in America, it was Trump, then Jill Stein, and only after that Harris.
Are you kidding me? I didn't realize. I thought Jill Stein had taken a good chunk of Harris's vote. I didn't realize he actually voted for Trump. I mean, I knew that there was a. But I mean, do you think? Somebody asked me this the next day in the British press, and I said, I think that many Arabs also understand that a strong leader means a stable Middle East. And I don't think Arabs are stupid in that sense. I think they understand stability comes with strength.
I think it's not fair to paint all Arabs with a broad brush, right? Yeah. Like one of the things is a few days before the election, Trump put out a letter to Lebanese Americans. His son-in-law, right, is from a Lebanese family.
So interesting.
And I said, a lot of Lebanese Americans are Christians.
Yeah.
And they really hate Hezbollah.
Of course they do.
Like when we say Arabs, like
I was just going to say, are we talking Arabs or are we talking about Muslims? Because it's not the same thing, and we should clarify a little bit.
They're very varied, yeah. Though I do think that like the Arab populations in America are mostly not Christian, but I think it's still a large percentage.
Absolutely. Wow. And so then we have this. I thought that today we were going to dedicate all our time to unpacking. And then I don't know whether it's connected, whether it's not connected. And then we have a football game. Sorry, I still won't say soccer. I'm British.
I'll say soccer.
A football game on the weekend and a pogrom. Was this an accident waiting to happen? Is this like, yes, it was likely to happen. Everybody warned about it. And it happened.
I think I would like to say one thing before we actually talk about this, and that's that I will pull this card out as the grandchild of multiple Holocaust survivors. I don't use Holocaust terminology easily. Like I don't say concentration camp. I would never call what's happening at the border in America a concentration camp. I would never call a ghetto something that's not a ghetto. And until I learned all the details, or at least most of the details that I did as Friday went on about Amsterdam, I wasn't ready to call it a pogrom. But after hearing about how it was pre-organized, how the WhatsApp groups were calling people out, how they were armed and waited for the Jews and hunted the Jews, literally hunted the Jews, now I insist on calling it a pogrom.
I would add one more element, which is that in pogroms, the authorities tend to turn a blind eye.
Exactly.
And the police were warned and they took minimal action,
100%.
Really almost nothing.
Yes.
And connecting it back to America, do you think that this shift, punishing, let's say, the Democratic Party is because regular average Americans look at what happened in D.C. with the defacing of the monuments in college campuses? They see this behavior. I mean, these people would do that if given the chance. Let's be honest.
Yes.
They would do pogroms given the chance. And do you think America just goes, I think, what's his name? Constantine did a very good, what's his name?
Yeah, Constantine.
He did a very good breakdown of why America voted Republican and even traditional states voted, states that are traditionally Democratic.
I think there's a temptation among Jews and Israelis and also other groups of people to like say, oh, this has to do with our pet issue. Yes. And I would say, as James Carville famously said, like, it's the economy, stupid.
Yes.
Like, the economy has not fully recovered from COVID and people still feel like their groceries cost too much money. And those are the biggest.
That's the main issue.
But I also think
immigration.
Americans hate and immigration is related.
Yeah,
I think.
it's related, absolutely.
I think people hate a sense of chaos, and that the campus issue and all these protests, they contributed to a feeling of chaos. And if you look at a lot of the big cities and the immediate suburbs of a lot of big cities, so you could see like around Miami, around New York, Phoenix was another city. You see a shift, a red shift. Like even if Trump didn't win in those places, there's a strong shift. And I think it's because of the chaos. So it is related to sort of our issues, but I don't think it is our issues.
No, I agree with you. I think that when voters in America ask, where is Israel or the Middle East?
They're not voting on it.
Way down. And I think we, especially in Israel, we tend to think that it's all about us.
Yeah.
Exactly. And foreign policy has very little bearing. And I think you're right. I think it is a sense of chaos and just and in so many of these very democratic states, there was almost like an acceptance of crime, an acceptance of this. Well, people. I've never seen New York in the way that I saw it the last time I was there, with homeless people. I mean, in the old days, New York used to have drug addicts homeless. Today, you see entire families on the streets, and you think, well, what's going on? This looks like,
I mean, you go into any like convenience store, go Dwayne Reed, that's the store in New York, and like everything's behind lock and key.
Yes.
You can't buy deodorant without
the pharmacy.
It's crazy.
I went to the pharmacy and things are under lock and key.
Yeah.
I didn't even realize that was
It's been for a few years now. Yeah.
But it's a really excellent point, like that everyone can feel and touch. Like you walk into the pharmacy and things that you were able to get, like even just like think razors or something, crazy. Like it's behind. I know razor sounds like it's a dangerous thing, but they're like razors.
What do I like when I visit New York? Right, it's not because I need to buy deodorant in New York that I go to Rating. It's because I want it. But it's because I want to buy candy. I want to bring my American candies back to Israel that I miss from my childhood. And I have to ask someone to unlock the Hershey Kisses,
Wow.
That's a little bit.
It's very telling.
That's a little bit crazy. Yeah. So what's happening now in Europe is that there's going to be another football match in France.
Oh, yeah.
The French have called in 4,000 police, as well as...
Right? That's what they call them?
Gendarmes, yes.
Oh,
and 1,500. The question is, can you trust, like what you said about the definition of a pogrom, is that the authorities turn their back or they even sort of help? Can we still trust any country in Europe to protect Jews now? I guess we'll see. But that concerns me.
Yeah, no, I find it very concerning. I think no country in Europe has been safe from sort of individual violence, right? Like you had all these cases in France where like the Muslim neighbors of the Jew will break into their house and murder them. Right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And ultimately, like it is hard to stop a crime like that.
Yeah.
The French are a little bit better at like mob control.
I agree with that actually.
Yeah, but it's not hard to prosecute, meaning it's one thing.
That's a different
problem. They're not prosecuting. There's no one under arrest currently for that program in Australia. In Amsterdam, sorry.
Really? I thought
no one
arrested 60 people.
It was before the program and they're all out.
Are you kidding?
No, there's no one who was arrested.
Yeah, it turns out, I also thought that, but then it turns out that those were people who arrested before.
Yeah.
Oh.
They caught people sort of on the way and stuff, but it's still...
And all the perpetrators are joking. Like, let's just be clear. They're all free to roam around and do it again.
You know what's interesting? This Geert Wilders, he won the election. Now, he gave up his seat as prime minister in order to create a coalition because people wouldn't sit with him. And so he appointed somebody from his party, I think, as prime minister, or he compromised. So he has, no power? He ran on the platform of violence and stopping immigrants with different values. That's his whole thing. Holland, of all places, was the country in Europe that turned really right.
So I think he doesn't have executive power.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Much in the way that like Marine Le Pen does not have an actual job in France, but she's a person of
the head of a huge
high influence, of a huge party. His initial statement, right, was, what did he call them? The multicultural scum. Not my choice of words, but that's what he called them. So in theory, his party should have some sort of influence on changing immigration policy, but they've been in office, I don't know, like from this year, just a few months, I think.
Well, I don't know, but
also these people, the problems in a lot of Europe have been going on for decades.
Yes.
They brought in people from Arab and Muslim countries, like in the 60s, to be their foreign workers, right?
Yes.
And a lot of these people are born in Europe.
Yeah.
But there's a difference. Hold on. When we talk about immigration and the problems with immigration, it's not the people coming in. It's the refusal to be part of that country. It's the refusal to integrate into that culture and to take those values. It's not just the people. And I think when we talk about immigration, it's not just bodies. And we have to remember that. The people who have come into the European countries just refuse to be European, or at least to espouse those values. You cannot rampage through country, not in New York, not in Chicago, and not in Amsterdam.
But people do what you let them get away with.
Of course.
Because the law enforcement is not doing anything wherever this country is.
So that's where you come into the left, who are, I don't want to bother anyone, and I want to make anyone feel bad.
Correct.
Exactly.
Do you guys familiar with the Ayaan Hirsi Ali story? So
she had to leave, and that was 20 years ago.
Exactly. 20 years ago, she had to escape the Netherlands. So
Tell for people who don't know.
So Ayaan Hirsi Ali was someone who was born and grew up in Somalia. She escaped an arranged marriage to the Netherlands. She was a refugee in the Netherlands, and she got a college education. She's a brilliant woman. She became a member of parliament. And she worked with Theo van Gogh, from the descendant of the Van Gogh, of Vincent van Gogh. And they made a documentary about the dangers of radical Islam in the Netherlands. And Van Gogh was assassinated by a radical Muslim on the street. And he had a note pinned to his body saying Ayaan Hirsi Ali was next. She didn't run away after that. She continued to speak out. But then there was basically like a witch hunt where they said that her refugee application had some wrong details. She changed her name because she was running away from people. So they revoked her citizenship, which meant she had to leave parliament. And then she ran away to the U.S.
So they're good. It's just a story, right? If that's what you're going to do, if that's how you're going to treat the people who come in and actually want to have your values, well, why are you surprised?
Yeah.
What's even more depressing is what Luai Ahmed, who we had on our show, told us, and that he's from Sweden.
Yeah.
And that is that a lot of these immigrants actually radicalize in Europe. Like they come with, they want to have a new life, and they find themselves in these mosques. And that's where the radicalization is actually occurring.
Yeah.
And that's even more
And again, that's where the authorities need to come in and say, this cannot happen here.
So there's this video clip of the foreign minister of the UAE, Abdullah bin Zayed, that went really viral, where he was in some conference panel, something, and he just said, like, in Europe, you're not doing anything about this, and the problem is going to come to you. And it was like he said it like 10 years ago. But
and he said because of political incorrectness or lack of decision making, that's what he said, it's going to come to you, and you think you understand it, you don't understand it. And so we pray that all the changes that have occurred in the last week will be for the good and the stability. And maybe this is a turning point in Middle East relations. So. Maybe the fact that Iran now is worried because a plot to kill Trump was actually discovered. And apparently the same person or the same agents that sent to kill Trump were the same agents to kill what's that wonderful Iranian woman with the flower in her hair?
Massiel.
Yes. So she just came out, and I just saw her recording saying that the people that were sent out to kill Trump were the people that were sent out to kill her. So God knows if that's true.
Goodness gracious.
But either way, we hope that this leads to more stability.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen.
And now to get a closer look as to what happened last weekend, straight from Holland, we have somebody who was pivotal in helping all those Israelis in escaping the pogrom. So we have the pleasure of having with us Yahly Bar-Lev, who is the director of Stand With Us in the Netherlands. Yahly, you are Israeli, you're Dutch, you're living there for almost a year. Did you expect something like this to happen?
No, I would say that I wouldn't expect this kind of pogrom, but there was already a few signs of antisemitism in Amsterdam in specific. But this kind of a behavior and violence, no, I did not expect it. It was a complete shock.
So what signs are you talking about when you say there were already signs of antisemitism? What exists everywhere in Europe, or something a little deeper?
So it seems like what we see in Europe in general speaking, we also had, there is a lot of pro-Palestine protests, but none of them escalated as far as I know and from as far as I've been here to these measures where you're hurting and lynching Israeli or Jewish people in the city. So they burned flag, they peed on flag, they yelled, they said things. They did a lot of mess, but not in this. This is an escalation, and I have to say that it doesn't seem like this is going to be the end if we see how the police and the authority is handling it. And I can
They're not
say that
handling it, right? They're not handling it.
they don't know what there is like two opinion about this. On one hand, they say they don't do it. They do the talks, like they do support. They say that they are against it, but when it comes to practical and action, they don't take any measures, and they're very weak with the way that they try to not interfere. And the other side is they're afraid by themselves. In the end of the day, we're talking about groups of people, and they will not risk their own self to do it for, I'm sorry to say, but for us, I guess.
That's ridiculous. But, I think, Yahly, what's shocking to me is that Holland, the Netherlands, in the last election went pretty much right, went on an anti-immigration platform. Gert Wilders' party, he didn't take the prime ministership. But you'd think that the people of Netherlands had actually made their voices heard, and they were completely against this. So where is the disconnect between the voice of the people in the government and what we saw in the weekend?
So basically, the Netherlands and the Dutch, their mentality is very peaceful. They are not equipped with the understanding of what terror is. They try to be as liberal as possible, and that's the essence of the Dutch people. And I think that the Dutch people have said and spoke about it, but now they can actually see what's the outcome. I don't think they ever thought to themselves that we will get to an escalation where people are getting hurt and attacked and, thrown into the canals in such a place. I would also say that there is a difference between Amsterdam, the city, and the rest of the Netherlands, where they say that I heard from my Dutch friends that if it will be not in the Amsterdam city, we might have seen other, let's say, Dutch people coming in and helping the Israelis and the Jews, because they are in the position where they don't really tolerate the immigrations, and I would say also the radical people in their.
So you're saying the hotbed is Amsterdam, like a lot of major urban cities where major droves of immigrants came. But you said, you just said earlier, this is not going to be the end. Where do you think this is going to go? Is it going to get worse before it gets better? Is that your assessment?
Yeah, my assessment, it's going to get worse. This is just because if you'll see how the police reacted, and the mayor who came on Friday to speak in Amsterdam with the Jewish community, she was again saying how much she's supporting and how much doing everything that she can. But if this is everything she can do, it means they're going to continue. Let's take also under consideration the fact that people were not arrested on that day, if you can recall, only the day before.
Yahly.
Because it's a weak authority. It's a weak understanding of how the mentality is going. And it's really, I think now they understand it better, that it's going to give them, like, to the Dutch society, it's a big risk. And if they are not going to change their the way they approach it, and they didn't yet, we're going to see more and more of it. And that's something that I'm terrified of.
Well, I can imagine you relocated a short time ago, only a year ago. I mean, did you ever think that you're leaving war-torn Israel and you're going to end up in the hotbed of a modern pogrom?
Absolutely not. This is something that is, I have to say, we are seeing history kind of repeating itself. But I could never imagine. I've been in Holland since birth. Every year, everything is very peaceful and very nice and very calm. And coming into this, it seems like times are changing and fast.
We had a hint of it, I guess, 20 years ago with the Van Gogh murder and Ayaan Hirsi Ali and what happened to her. Was that maybe canary in the mine of where it was going?
Maybe, perhaps.
It just seems that, like you say, the Dutch are such peaceful people. I also know we have so much support from the Christian community in Holland. And it just seems that it was crazy that it happened there.
It is crazy, but it's not out of the blue in that sense, because the protest started October 7th. They gave that date reader already. And that trigger and those, let's say, woke people and those people who allow themselves to behave in ways that they wouldn't allow themselves before, now are surfing in, and we can see them more and more, more and more in our environment. And I think it is something that really, if policy would not be changed fast, we will see much more of it. And not only in the Netherlands. Netherlands is one point in Europe. We have a game next week in France, right? Like you're going to see what's going to happen. Even though I have to say that from what I heard, the police officers in France are much more, with more action.
I agree.
Exactly. They don't stand there and just let 15 people chase someone on the street. That's something that you can see.
Yahly, how are the Jewish community of Amsterdam taking all of this? Because they're there. It happened this was clearly anti-Semitic, not anti-Israeli. How are they dealing with it?
I have to say something very good about the Jewish community and also the Israeli that are here. The first time that everybody heard about it was after the game. And they all, we joined forces with Maccabi Europe, and they found a place to get Israeli out of the city, drive them, volunteer from their own time, drop everything just to help every Israeli that was in the city center, to drive them to the airport, to drive them to the safe place. So on one hand, it's heartwarming to see how we can, unite in those situations. On the other hand, it feels like our voices here in that sense isn't heard. They're shocked. They feel that this is something that can escalate very quickly, and they're asking for actions. And that's why the mayor also went there to talk to them. And you can have seen the reaction of the Jewish community saying, this is the third time you're here, saying sorry. It was also at the Holocaust Museum. But what are you doing?
Exactly. Well, the king also said sorry again, but again, like you say, where's the action?
Yeah, where is the action? And only when they understand they need to act, that's when we can see that, a better time will come.
Please God. Well, thank you so much for the valuable work that you're doing there, for Stand With Us, and also for the community. I wish that you and your family stay safe, and hopefully we'll see that much needed change. Thank you so much for being with us, Yahly.
Thank you.
And now for a very popular segment, Scumbag of the Week. As you are new on our show, Lahav, who is your scumbag this week?
Okay, well, I went with an evergreen pick.
Oh, yes.
Mehdi Hassan.
Oh,
formerly of MSNBC and once again of Al Jazeera.
Yes.
Where he belongs.
Didn't he help Al Jazeera USA get set up or something? I mean, he
did, and he was in Al Jazeera in the UK, and whatever, the oleaginous shill of the Qataris.
Yes.
He's my scumbag this week because there is no anti-Semite in the world practically who he will not stand up for and explain why he in fact is not really an anti-Semite.
Exactly.
And so in this case, it's the pogromists, rioters, whatever you want to call them in Amsterdam. He says, there is a coordinated attempt on this hell site, this is a tweet, tonight to accuse me of anti-Semitism because I pointed out the fact that Israeli football hooligans started the violence in Amsterdam. That's not a justification of the violence, blah, 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 dot, dot, dot.
I said the same about October 7th.
Yes, pro-Israel accounts are cynically abusing anti-Semitism to protect Israel and smear their opponents. Now, by the time he said this, more than 2 days after the attack took place, it was very well established that these were premeditated attacks. Yeah. I'm not going to excuse, what the British call football hooliganism. Yeah. Okay, sure, yes, there were poorly behaved Israelis. And maybe if it was just about that, there would have been some little fights in the street because that's soccer fans are not the best behaved people. But that's not what this was.
Yes. Right.
This was premeditated. We now know there were plans days in advance. Taxi drivers were reporting to people on the streets where to go and stake out the Jews to attack them on the street.
And they took Jews to the mobs. The Jews thought they were getting in a cab to go to their hotel, and they were brought into alleyways with the mob.
Exactly. And by the way, there was also violence before the soccer game. People who were older soccer fans in their 30s and 40s who were not participating in hooliganism in the streets. People came there was a casino. I read this in the Wall Street Journal, that people came into the casino and punched Israelis.
No, this is
And one of
definitely
one of
coordinated.
the security guards was in on it. That was one thing, and he's fired. So at least the casino fired him.
Oh, how nice of them. But Mehdi's original tweets that everybody understands was basically justifying, it's like,
everybody was for boys,
Israelis were rowdy Israelis, pulled down Palestinian flags. It's basically like saying to a woman, well, she should, she asking for it getting raped because she was wearing a short skirt. That's basically what it was saying.
It's just like the volume. Like, it's the volume on the hypocrisy. First of all, okay, Maccabi Tel Aviv was playing Ajax. Yeah. Ajax is one of these teams in Europe that has a Jewish history. Yeah. And so they have the Magen David, and sometimes they even wave Israeli flags. They're like the pro-Jewish team. Yeah. Listeners from England will know about this from Tottenham. That it's like the same kind of vibe. And then their opponents come and say, Ajax to the gas chambers.
Yes.
You don't see the Ajax fans beating up all the other fans who are telling them to go to the gas chamber. So it's just like it's completely different.
They don't get soccer.
Right. And it's also like if an Israeli soccer fan was pulling down a Palestinian flag in the street and one guy passed by and punched him in the face, I would say,
he got it.
Not a great situation, but like this happens.
Yeah.
That's not what this was.
No,
it was mass violence.
Absolutely.
And that's why Mehdi is
That's why Mehdi is my scumbag, because there is no violence against Jews that he won't find excuses for.
You are 100% correct. He's such a worthy scumbag, and thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. Shoshana.
My scumbag of the week, and I am sad to say this, because I'm sure all of our children and we as children played with Legos, but Lego, you're my scumbag of the week because your New York store would not allow Professor Shai Davidai to do a miniature Lego of himself because his t-shirt said bring them home. And you told him that it was a political message and you don't print political messages. And I feel that's extremely sad that advocating for the hostages and the Jews to come home, not just Jews, by the way, and not just Israelis, but also Americans, I think 20 or something other countries, that it's a political message. And so Lego, I do want you to do better. Professor Shai Davidai is known for speaking out against all kinds of racism and hostilities, and he did not deserve to have his day ruined with his son by saying that bringing them home is a political message. So, Lego, I'm sorry to say you are my scumbag of the week.
What a shame.
Yeah.
Yeah, really. I mean, what are we...
Very sad.
A lot of companies have been falling into this sort of trap with the bring them home message.
I know. Adidas can do all the, Munich 72 and everyone, whatever, is fine with it until whatever. But Lego can't even let someone bring them home on his own personal Lego. We're not asking for a figurine of Shai.
The TikTok wouldn't let the Hostage Family Forum pay to be boosted on the algorithm.
Really?
Like, this is from the beginning.
No, they chat.
Yeah, and then there's a lot of other really political things that gets boosted on TikTok.
Well, on the nice side, though, on the night of the elections, 3 CNN anchors were wearing their yellow pins.
I saw.
And that's kind of, I mean, if they can wear it on CNN, I think Lego could have done better. Shame on you, Lego. Chaval. I spent so much money on you over the years.
Thousands of dollars of Lego.
Thousands
Do you think Christiana Amanpour had like an aneurysm? Karen's working with her. And she's definitely
Well, I think she had an aneurysm when Trump won. I think so.
She called the idea of the Israeli occupation forces like a week or two.
Yeah, she would have been my scumbag.
No, she's been our scumbag before.
Okay.
But I want to quote Lahav's term, evergreen scumbag.
Evergreen.
Definitely an evergreen
that's a good one.
scumbag. So Lahav mentioned earlier that the definition or the characteristics of a pogrom is when the authorities are turning a blind eye or actively participating. So my scumbag of the week is the Dutch police, especially this particular police officers who saw a 14-year-old boy along with his grandfather running. They were running away from mobs that were going to beat them up. They picked up 2 sticks from the ground for self-defense and kept running. And 2 Dutch police cars stopped, pulled them to the ground, beat them up, including the 14-year-old boy, arrested them, put them in the car,
Oh my God,
and took them to their hotel where they noticed Free Palestine stickers inside the vehicle. So the Dutch police were in on it.
Disgraceful.
And that's exactly what you said. That is the hallmark of a
That's terrifying. At that point, I heard, how does a Jew live in a city like that? Like, how do you not feel unsafe and concerned when the authorities has Free Palestine stickers and are not neutral? Like, they're supposed to be neutral.
I think this is happening in England as well. They call it two-tier policing, where they arrest anybody who's at a march for Britain and they say far right. And then when you have all these pro-Hamas marches for a whole year, nobody gets arrested. Jews get asked to leave because it might be dangerous for them, but there's absolutely nothing that they do about it. And this is what we have right now in the authorities. So Dutch police, you're my scumbags this week. All right, ladies. And every week with Scumbags, we also have incredible heroes, because heroes arise from moments of crisis and need. And this is where we're at. We're in a moment where the Jewish people are facing threats from everywhere.
Yeah.
And so we also have to find our heroes, because there always are heroes. Shoshanna, who's your hero this week?
My heroes are, I'm going to read this out, the multiple Chabad rabbis and rebbitzins from across Amsterdam who jumped into action, including but not limited to rabbis and rebbitzin Kamissar, Pinkovich, and Jacobs. I think they said, I've read that they set up a control center, like a Hamal, a war room, where they had a network of 50 local Israeli taxi drivers, because unfortunately, as we've already established, other taxi drivers were in on this pogrom, and they made sure that they would go and help anyone who needed. They were like dispatched back and forth.
To the airport, the hospital, they were taking them places. Yeah, I saw that.
And over 1,500, many of the 1,500 visitors in the town went back to Israel on the government charter flights, as we know, but some chose to stay until after Shabbat, and Chabad took care of them. I mean, Chabad always takes care of you for Shabbat, but they really went out of their way to make sure, they said, okay, we're needed, and they jumped into action. Like you said, we have to find our heroes. So Chabad, you are my heroes. Chabad,
you know why else Chabad is having a good week? Was who won the U.S. election? The candidate who prayed at the Olel.
Oh my God. So chido. I mean, how...
So far, Milei, Trump. I think everyone needs to go to the Ohel before an election.
I think I'm going to do that. I think that's what I'm going to do to boost my political career. Not a bad idea.
We're all going to the Ohel. Last trip.
Let's do it. Lahav.
Okay, my hero, and I hope I don't mispronounce it, but it's Melhem Assad, a Druze Israeli who was attending the Maccabi Tel Aviv game, and brought up, when he saw the mob riots, the mob violence break out, he took a bunch of Israelis next to him and started speaking to them in Arabic. So that the violence would not come to them, so people would think it was a group of Arabs, and he saved lives.
Unbelievable. Yeah. What a smart, quick thinking. This man.
First of all, I also read about him, and he was my choice, my first choice of hero.
He's Emily's choice.
He's Emily's choice also, right? But I can only say that I went to Majdal Shams after the horrific attack, and I have never ever been so moved by a people and their grace and their goodness. You know, some people have goodness that just emanates from them, and just like this peaceful feeling. And
the Jews have higher combat recruitment rates in the army.
They're just really quality, wonderful people. And it does not surprise me at all that he did what he did, but that he's a very big hero. Well,
unbelievable. What a great hero. Heroes arise from times of crisis. Okay, so my hero is another guy involved in the pogrom. He was a British Jew. Called Aaron. He doesn't want to give his full name, and I don't blame him.
Don't blame him.
God knows what to do to him in England. But again, he was an Ajax fan. He went there to watch a football game, as many Brits do, and saw what was happening to his brethren, and stepped in, got punched in the face, but fought along with the Israelis. Again, you know, in those moments, and we see this also in college, and we see the people who kind of stepped up to the plate. These are the moments when the real character of the person comes out. So Aaron, you know, I don't know who you are or where you live. We have a picture of you with a bloody nose, but God bless you for standing up with your people in the moment when your people was attacked.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're my hero. I feel better soon.
And so, ladies, on that wonderful note of heroes, we complete another week, and don't know what the next week is going to bring, because we're living in a pretty crazy world. But what we do pray for is that by next week, please, 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 our hostages are all home with their families.
Amen.
Thank you.